This is Josh Beiser from GameWisdom.com. Hope you enjoy this critical thought, your daily discussion on game design. And be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and you can pitch future critical thought topics. Alright everybody, before we get started with today's critical thought, it has been brought to my attention that I haven't done a critical thought on the difference between JRPG and WRPG, or Western RPG design. And I thought I really did do that one, because that's one of those beginning topics. So I'm going to be fixing that in the coming days. And there are any other beginner topics or general topics regarding game design that you guys would like to hear about, be sure to let me know in the comments below. So right now as we're talking, there's some kind of a football game going on, which I'm sure no one is watching at the moment. And we're going to make today's critical thought a little bit quicker, but it's nevertheless an important topic. We're going to be talking about the challenges of building and designing a game at the same time. And I know that sounds very similar, but there is an important point about this. When it comes to game development, as we've talked about on previous critical thoughts and discussions, game design is both entertainment and a product. And when I mean product, I mean about the programming. You're building something. And both sides have to come together in order for things to work, or you're just not going to have a game. You can have the most amazing game idea, but if you can't program it, no one will see it. Or you could be able to create a completely custom engine without having a game idea, then no one's going to really play your game. And one of the challenges, or one of the many challenges, I should say, of designing a game is having to build the game engine at the same time. And there is certainly a larger talk to be had about the subjects of using a manufacturer engine like Game Maker, Unity, RPG Maker, etc., or building your own. But that is a topic that I am not versed in. For anyone who's had experience with both and would like to talk to me about it, be sure to let me know in the comments. But the one thing that I do know regarding this kind of decision making is that when it comes to designing a game, having to build the engine at the same time adds a whole lot more trouble and stress on the game development. And one of the things that we've seen, especially in the early access crowdfunding space, is when this just becomes unmanageable. We've seen a lot, or several Kickstarter projects in the video game market over the last few years just fail. They are just not able to put a game out there. And one of the big causes for this kind of difficulty is underestimating the work it takes to design a game at the same time you're building the architecture via the engine. And like I said, even if you use an already made engine like Unity, it still doesn't make things perfectly easy. When it comes to the engine of your game, it's kind of like the engine of a car. This is what's going to determine what you can and can't do with that product. You can have, an amazing paint job and all the best parts in the world for your car, but if your engine doesn't work with it, all you have is a whole lot of scrap. And when it comes to game design, one of the things that we've seen, especially when it comes to designing these games, is when you're building something unique in terms of mechanics, chances are you're going to need a unique engine or make major modifications to an existing one. And again, this is not a topic that I have too much experience with, sadly, but I have spoken to developers who've ran into these issues themselves. Last year I spoke with Adrian Jensen from Abbey Games, hope I got his name right, and he talked about the difficulties they ran into with designing Renowned Explorers. And with that game, because of how unique are the mechanics and design, they basically had to build a game while designing the engine. And you would think, from a management point of view, that if you're doing essentially everything at once like that, it would be easier compared to having to use an existing engine and modify it. But the problem when it comes to designing and building the game is that you have these essentially two conflicting forces that you have to bring together. If your game design simply can't fit in your engine, then that's going to force you to completely redesign your game. Or what if your engine simply won't support what you're trying to build? And one of the surefire ways to basically kill a game's development is switching or changing game engines halfway, 75% through development. Now, if it's really, really early on, yeah, it's going to be a loss, but it's not going to be big. But if you're getting like 75% of the way there and you decide, oh, let's switch to Unreal, it won't be that bad, it's going to come back to bite you in a very big way. And like I said, in terms of deciding what engines to use, the pros and cons, that is unfortunately way beyond my expertise. When it comes to designing a game and building the engine at the same time, one of the things that we have seen, especially in the AAA space, is how this has really led into the importance of sequels. When it comes to designing these games, even if you're using a pre-established engine, you still have to make sure your entire team is on board, they understand what you can and can't do, and start at least trying to put something together that's playable. And this has led to one of the reasons why game sequels, especially when it comes to AAA development, usually outshine the first or previous titles. Because as you get further into developing a sequel for a game, chances are you're going to be using either the same engine or a very similar engine. You know how it works, you know how to make the most out of it, and it cuts down on the development time. If I already know how to build these levels, I don't need to fumble around with it for weeks or months. We can all just immediately get to work, and we can then focus our time and effort on expanding things. A really big case in point would be, of course, the jump from Assassin's Creed 1 to Assassin's Creed 2. And again, the first game, while it had some measure of promise, it just was kind of boring, and a lot of people didn't look at it too favorably. And then the sequel just wowed everyone. And the same could be said of something like the jump from Just Cause to Just Cause 2. But, and this is another point of this, is when developers make use of their own custom engines, I think DICE uses the Frostbite engine, I want to say. I know, of course, Souls from Software uses the Havoc engine. Even if you're using an outside engine or one that you've developed yourself, with each sequel, it allows you to make more out there, make more use of it. This is also another reason why first generation titles for just about any platform will always look far worse than second, third, or X going on kind of generations with consoles. I mean, if you look at something like the difference between the first generation of PlayStation 2 titles, when we get all the way to the end, it's almost night and day. Same goes for, I'll give you an example, like with the original Wii. When it started out, we had games like that Off-World, that truck racing game. And then by the end, or near the end of the Wii, we of course had amazing looking titles like Xenoblade Chronicles, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, etc. And again, the point is that developers, the longer they have with these engines and can look at them, they're able to do more with them. Now, there is a greater discussion to be had about the amount of strain it puts on developers. And one of the things that we've been seeing in the independent space are developers really trying to do everything at once. They're going to build a custom engine, design the entire game, put everything they want into it, and turn that into a 1.0 release and then move on to something completely different. And that conflicting opinions regarding sequels versus getting it all right the first time, that's a major topic regarding game design philosophy. And as we've talked about on previous Critical Thoughts, it lends into that discussion of refinement versus uniqueness. One of the reasons why indie games are so unique is that developers will usually put everything they want into a single title. They're going to make it as interesting and as different as possible, and then they're going to move on to something completely different. Is it going to be the most polished, bug-free experience? No. But it's going to be something that you're not going to see anywhere else, and sometimes not even from that same developer in the future. On the flip side, AAA development is about that refinement and that polish. They're going to work on sequels to games, they're going to look at existing designs and elevate it. So we're not going to get something that's completely unique, but we're going to get something that is polished and refined to such a high quality that you're going to get a very well-made and enjoyable experience. But, of course, there is that debate regarding quote-unquote sequelitis. When we start getting into, 4+ sequels to the same series. We've talked about this before with Nintendo and how one of the most common criticisms is that we just see, Mario games, Zelda games. Chances are we're going to get a new Mario Kart. Beyond just that the remake for the Switch. And we're also going to be seeing more Fire Emblem games in the future. So for those of you watching this, and this is going to be an interesting topic, especially since I know a lot of you who are enjoying these videos probably spend more time in the independent space. Do you prefer games that are 100% unique at the cost of refinement? Or do you like games that elevate or borrow from existing designs to do something that's very well polished and built around that kind of design? But like I said, we're going to make this a quicker, critical thought. That wasn't easy to get out, as always. But getting back to the topic regarding designing and building a game. Being able to do both, again, really, it will speed up development time if you're trying to do everything at once. But in order to get all this working, you need to have a solid game plan and a really good management structure with your studio. And again, as I know with independent studios, we could be talking about 2-3-man teams, 10 to 15, whatever. But it is very important for you to understand your own limitations and what your actual goal is for the game. And that would lead into another topic regarding, I guess, Game Design 101 and the importance of iterating on design, but that's going to be for another day. To wrap things up, like I said, for those of you watching this, and I know there's probably a few of you who are watching these who are independent developers yourself, and you are either working with an existing engine or building your own. What do you think about this kind of process when it comes to designing your game at the same time you're building the engine itself? Let me know in the comments below. Like I said, it is very risky, and one of these days I would love to do a critical thought talking more about that kind of choice, whether to use a pre-existing engine or building one yourself. But unfortunately, that is going to be way out of my scope, at least for the immediate future. So with that said, thank you so much for watching today's Critical Thought. Hope you're enjoying whatever football game is on right now. And be sure to check back tomorrow. Like I said, for Mondays, there will be hopefully weekly Dissecting Design videos. The first one, I think, took really well, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy tomorrow's. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. And like I said, be sure to come back daily for more great content here and on GameWisdom.com, where we examine the art and science of games. So until tomorrow, I'm still Josh Beiser. Have a great rest of the night, and see you all then. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and of course share with your friends. It always helps out. For daily posts on all manner of game design and industry topics, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the site and everything that I do, be sure to check out the Patreon campaign. If we can hit goals, it will mean more content for everyone to enjoy, and I'll be able to support myself and my household. If you want to follow me, you can find me on Twitter at GWBeiser for updates throughout the day and random thoughts from me. And lastly, you can find me on Twitch right over there at GWBeiser for daily streams most nights around 10 Eastern. Thanks again for watching the video, and be sure to check out more great content coming to the Game Wisdom channel real soon.